Claude Opus 4.6 just dropped and it changes everything. And I'm not just talking about prompting anymore. I'm actually going to orchestrate entire teams of separate agents to do a task for me in this video today. Today, I'm going to go back to something I've been trying to build for a while. I'm going to show you how to build the ultimate global tide times app. And I'll even pit 4 agents against each other to battle it out to get the best design for my app. Now let's get into the good stuff, Claude Opus 4.6. And yes, this was announced from Anthropic just the other day. We're upgrading our smartest model. It's now Claude Opus 4.6. It improves on coding skills. Of course, every time a new model comes out, it's better. You just want to know what's good and what's happening and what can I do with it. And I can tell you that it's got better at 2 things, in my opinion, that I think are really, really cool if you're making apps and vibe coding, and that is a 1,000,000 token context window. That's incredible. It means it can read much more of your code base and work with that. But I think the most exciting thing is that you can now orchestrate teams of Claude Code sessions. That's right, multiple Claude Code instances. So we're not talking about one Claude Code agent spinning up sub-agents. We're talking about one Claude Code agent spinning up completely separate versions of Claude Code. So you can just have tons of different Claude Codes running, working on different things. It's called Agent Teams, and we're going to investigate it as we build this app. Okay, I've read all the docs, so you don't have to. Now, this is an experimental feature, so you'll need to enable it. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And also, you can choose a display mode. Now, this is really interesting because you can split it out into panes and make it look really sci-fi and futuristic. And the documents actually tell you to use tmux to view your agents because it's a well-known command line tool that lets you run multiple sessions. And interestingly enough, it says to run it inside iTerm2. Just the other week, I did a video about my vibe coding stack, and I'm using Termius quite a lot to split out terminals, but I'd never tried iTerm2, which is a terminal emulator for Mac OS. And it also says here on the description, it does amazing things. I'm kind of excited, so I'm going to install it and try and set up Claude Agent Teams inside iTerm2. To get this working, I'm going to edit the .claude directory and the settings.json file, and I simply go down to the bottom and I can copy and paste this code in to the settings file. This means every time I run Claude Code, it's going to work. But to start with, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go ahead and install tmux on my Mac. This is going to enable me to have that mission control over my agent teams, which I really like. Okay, now that's installed, I'll type tmux-cc, which is exactly what I'm told to do right here in the documentation, and you'll see I've got a tmux terminal. So inside my project folder, I've made the tide times directory, ultimate tide times here, and now we can run Claude, so I don't have to keep hitting buttons. Claude dangerously skip permissions is what I'll run, and look at this, we are in. All right, let's see what this can do. I want to build a global tide and sea temperature web app, create an agent team with 3 specific teammates to work in parallel. Now I'm going to tell Claude Code what those agents will do. Number 1 will be the Backend Dev, focusing on integrating the global tide API and sea temps. And then number 2, that's the Frontend Dev, who will build a responsive dark mode web UI that visualizes the data nicely. And then number 3, and this is the important thing about agent teams inside Claude Code, we're going to have the role of the Skeptic, a security and UX researcher who plays devil's advocate. Then, all right, follow these rules. And then number 1 will be require plan approval for Backend Dev and Frontend Dev before they write any code. That's important. Number 2, the Skeptic should not write code, only review and plan docs. And then number 3, all teammates must update Claude.md. This is really important with all their decisions, so I get visibility as my agent teams build. So that's my first prompt. Let's hit enter on Claude Code running on Opus 4.6 and see exactly what happens. Time for a little coffee. Empty project directory, so it's creating the Claude.md file. This is what I'd expect. Now let me create the task list. Now this is really good. You'll see I've still got the GSD plugin installed. I was using that to plan things out, but now it seems more and more with each update, Claude Code is actually writing the plan itself. And look at this, it has to research first, then design and plan, implement. This is absolutely fantastic. Okay, this is really, really cool. Now you can see it's just popped open another terminal window here, which is essentially popping open a new agent. And it's popping open another terminal here. This is truly futuristic, but I'm getting some security warnings as I'm running basically tmux inside iTerm2. This is the first time I've experienced this. What I can see here is it says, wow, now there's 3 terminals here. What have we got? This is absolutely insane. Okay, so Claude will be able to read and edit. Yes, I trust this folder. I'll say absolutely. And the same on this one. So now we can actually see, if we look over here, we've got a Backend Dev up here. We've got a security and UX review task going on over here. And we've got a Frontend Dev that I need to give permissions to as well. And they're all going to go ahead. Now you'll see my front-end version of Claude Code is actually running its own 2 sub-agents as well at the same time, working on best front-end frameworks for 2026, charting libraries, so I'm going to get a really good-looking app. We can see up here, we've got more web searching going on here and more team approval being waited for, so I'll just say yes to all. And it's really cool to see that we've got at Backend Dev, we've got at the Skeptic, and we've got at Frontend Dev all doing their own separate tasks. Over here in the main control panel, we can actually see the to-do list getting ticked off, and we can cleverly see that Claude Code has actually said what agents it's waiting for to complete the work before it moves on to the next steps. Okay, the backend agent seems to have finished. It says excellent research. It's designing the backend plan based on these findings, and of course it's going to pass that to the Skeptic to see whether it gets approval or not. Now, while we wait for this to get done, I've just popped open another terminal window and I'm going to brew install Glow on my Mac. And then we'll get into my projects directory and the ultimate tide times directory. And now, this is great. I'm going to type in glow and then claude.md. And look at this. Now we've got a nice looking file that is all marked in different colors. It's taken the mark down and made it look really nice. So I can actually view the full text that all my different agents have written in here on how they're building the app. It's interesting to see how my Skeptic has worked. It's read all the documents, it's found some blocking issues, strongly recommended, and some nice to have fixes, and it's putting all of this into Claude MD. Okay, we can see my agents are now shutting down. It's just the backend dev that's left, and if we read to the bottom here, we can see the Skeptic confirmed and terminated. So lots of my agents are basically agreeing, all is done. This is exciting. Once they're done, they wrap up and close their terminal windows. How futuristic is that? And we get to the bottom now of the main terminal. We can see the Tide app is fully shut down and cleaned up. All 3 teammates terminated themselves. That's rather final, isn't it? The project is ready to run. Both front-end and back-end are built, tested, and documented in Claude MD. And it's popped open my ultimate Tide Times app. Let's type in La Jolla and see what comes up. There we go, in California, and see, wow, okay, it's got the sea temperature of 16.6 Celsius. Of course, I can flip over to Fahrenheit if I prefer. It's got this beautiful tide graph, which is pretty accurate, and the tide times and what exactly to expect. It's done a pretty decent job, and it just worked out of the box with the first prompt, which is pretty impressive. Southend-on-Sea, England, United Kingdom, and boom, look at that. That's a pretty comprehensive graph, even going into the minus numbers, which is really cool. What about trying Paphos in Cyprus? And yes, it appears there. And indeed, it seems to be absolutely correct. A very minimal tide change, a correct sea temperature here. We now have a global tide times app with sea temperature included, with just 1 prompt, 3 agents, and a final prompt to get it working globally. Now let's have some fun with new agent teams. I'll say create a team with 4 agents to improve the design of this app. Agent 1 loves 90s websites. Agent 2 loves Apple best practices. Agent 3 loves gradients on everything. And Agent 4 loves using images. They should all argue strongly for their case. This is going to be great. Now let's unleash the chaos, spawning all 4 agents in parallel. We've got the Retro 90s agent, we've got the Apple Purist agent that's fired up, we've got the team lead over here that will ultimately have to decide things, we've got the Gradient King firing up here. This is absolutely hilarious. And one more firing up into action, the Image Lover. This is going to be a really colorful, beautiful, and hopefully Apple best practices designed app, by the end of this debate. All right, the 90s one says, I've seen the full extent of this sterile, corporate, soulless. This is absolutely brilliant. Image Lover has fired the first shot at Gradient King. Debates are heating up. Apple Purist is going after Gradient King too. Poor Gradient King is getting double teamed. Let's see how they respond. So do I go for the Gradient King with Aurora backgrounds and animated ocean gradients, zero bandwidth, strongest debate performance apparently, so that is the one that would win, but I ultimately as the human in the loop have the final say. Then number 2, the Image Lover would have full bleed ocean photography, glass morphism cards, and cinematic immersion. If you want to follow the Apple Purist, it's going to be SF Pro, Frosted Glass, True Black, all Retro 90s, Marquee, Comic Sans, Visitor Counter, Web Ring, ASCII Art, Pure Joy, and Chaos. So let me know in the comments down below, out of those 4 designs, which one would you pick? Well, seeing as it tells me the strongest debate performance came from Gradient King, I'm going to accept Gradient King this time, and we'll have a look at what it came up with. And here is our new gradient heavy design. Yes, we can see as I hover over things, cards pop out, everything has a gradient on. I can actually change this to somewhere like Nice in France, and we'll get the tide times, and everything is looking great here. It's fully functional, it's gradient heavy. While not changing the design that much, it's definitely updated. I'm kind of wondering now what the 90s design would have looked like. And it's updating in real time. That's a proper 90s search bar. Let's type in Bristol in England, and yes, we get a very glowy graph now, full 90s style right there in front of me. So there you have it. Claude Opus 4.6 is the best coding model yet. Yeah, potentially. Agent teams, incredible. They can work for you overnight. Absolutely. Run it in iTerm 2 with tmux to have multiple windows and keep visibility on every working agent. Absolutely. And be careful with security if you're running OpenClaw. Lots to think about this week. I've really enjoyed doing this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching and got something out of it. Do leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite design would have been. And join me in my free community. That's also linked up down below too. Thank you so much for watching. And YouTube is showing a video on your screen now you should watch next. Thanks.